Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in Exodus chapter 15, verse 22. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And when they went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. So they're coming out of the Red Sea. They head into the wilderness of Shur. Now, as they're traveling in the wilderness, they go out for 3 days and they find no water. And that's a problem because you have probably 1.5 million people, 2 million people, plus livestock. They have needs. Now, when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. Now, if we just read verse 23, that sounds weird to us. And we need to stop and think about and remember the naming conventions and the way that things are explained in the Old Testament. Because this Old Testament, especially the Torah, is not being written to the people of the time of Exodus. This is being written to the generation at Deuteronomy, being written by Moses and I believe also Joshua, that they're telling these people at the generation that's of Deuteronomy that your ancestors came to Marah. And it was named Marah because the waters were bitter, and Marah means bitter. So they're saying we came to these waters that we would end up naming Marah. Then the people in Deuteronomy would understand the location they're talking about. Now the people in Exodus, when they came to it, it wasn't named Marah. They just came to waters and then named it Marah later. And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. Then he cast it into the waters. The waters were made sweet. So they come to this water, but water that they can't drink. So they start to cry out and say, "What are we to drink?" So Moses cries out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a solution to his problem. You know, sometimes we see this and we go, "Oh, well, they're complaining again." Well, in this case, they're complaining for a good reason. They needed the water. And Moses, doing as we should, cries out supplications to the Lord and says, "Lord, we need water. Please help us." And that's what we're to do. We're supposed to cry out to our Father when we end up in trouble and let him show us a way to make the bitterness of our experiences sweet again. We have problems, call out to the Lord. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them, and said, "If you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." So he's saying, okay, look, we're going to make a covenant again. We're going to have some commandments. We're going to put forth an ordinance. You're going to do what I ask, and in doing so, you're going to understand that I am the Lord who is here to heal you. I am your Father. I am not here to punish you. Punishment will come, but I'm not here for that reason. I am here to lead you in love. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there by the waters. So he says, look, I'm going to show you goodness. And where do they go? They go to Elim, and there's plenty of water. There's 70 palm trees, which means plenty of shade, plenty of comfort. They basically come to an oasis in the wilderness, where once again the Lord can provide for his children and show them that he is Lord. He is the loving Father that he says he is. So moving on to chapter 16. And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. So here they're journeying from Elim. They're coming out of that oasis. And they've been traveling for quite a little while now. The 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed from the land of Egypt. So, like 45 days-ish. They come out and they've been traveling. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." They had never done any of those things in Egypt. Now, their forefathers probably did. Joseph certainly did. His brothers probably did, especially after the famine. But this generation, they never did these things. But this is what we call looking back with 2020 hindsight. Or, I'm sorry, not 2020 hindsight. This is what we call looking back with kind of, in kind of this distorted way of the past. We look back in this way of saying, look at how good it used to be. We'll often look at things now and say, man, it was so much better when I was a kid. It snowed so much more when I was a kid. Man, the summers lasted so much longer when I was a kid. No, that was just the perception of things when you were a kid. Because you've kind of filtered out the bad times and you remember the good times. That's what we should do, by the way. There are lots of people who filter out the good times and only remember the bad. And that's how you get a degenerated, unappreciative person. They are incapable of focusing on the good and they only focus on the negative from their childhood. These people have this distorted view of the past saying, look at all this good we had. They never had that good. That's what the Egyptians had when they were around, but not what they had. But because of their current troubles, they're looking through rose-colored glasses on the past. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." So God's saying, look, every day I'm going to rain bread from heaven. I'm going to rain it. It's going to gather across the ground, and you're going to gather a certain amount every day. But on the 6th day, because the 7th will be the Sabbath, you're going to gather double because you're not going to gather on the 7th day. I'm going to see whether or not they'll listen. Then Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, "At evening you shall know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your complaints against the Lord. But what are we that you complain against us?" So Moses and Aaron saying, you think you're complaining against us. You think you're telling us that we brought you out of Egypt. We didn't bring you out of Egypt. The Lord brought you out of Egypt. So you think you're complaining against us? No. You're complaining against the Lord, and he hears every word of this, by the way. So that's told as a promise of something that God's going to keep, but also almost as a warning of saying, hey, you're not complaining against us. You're complaining against God. So you better watch how you step. Also Moses said, "This shall be seen when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to the full. For the Lord hears your complaints which you make against him. And what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses spoke to Aaron, "Say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your complaints." Now it came to pass, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. So it was that quails came up at evening and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was small round substance as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, What is it? For they did not know what it was. We, of course, know the substance to be called manna. Manna from the sky. But manna literally means, what is it? That's what the children of Israel called it. God had blessed them in such a great way they didn't even understand what it was. And we will oftentimes be in the same way. We will stand in awe at the way we have been blessed. Sometimes, after the fact, we will be able to witness in real time, be able to stand there and say, wow, what is this thing that God did? Like, I know where I was, I know where I am, but I didn't recognize what the blessing was as it was happening. I can only see it now. What was it he did that got me from here to there? And that's what the Israelites are about to experience. This, what is it? What is this abundant blessing of God? Because now they were crying about meat, crying about having bread to the full. Now they have both. And now God is going to test their faithfulness to him. Are they following the bread? Or are they following him? We see this in the New Testament. Jesus confronts the people following him after he feeds the 5,000. He even says, you're not following me for my word. You're not following me for anything more than a free meal. So from here on out, you're going to have to eat of my body and drink of my blood. You're going to have to be at one with me. You are going to have to take what I have spiritually and bring it into you. I am going to be your sustenance. I am going to be the bread by which you eat, because man shall not live by bread alone, but by the word of God. The word of God, Christ himself. The bread of Christ. The blood of the covenant. That's what we are to live by. God is telling them the same thing. You want this? We're going to give it to you. But why are you following me? Are you following me for the meat and the bread? Or are you following me because I'm your father and I provide for you lovingly and dutifully? And Moses said to them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need. 1 omer for each person, according to the number of persons. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. So omer is a unit of measure that the people of Deuteronomy would have known. And I'm sure if I look it up, I could look up and see exactly what it is now. Because the units of measurements they use, ephah, omer, cubit. Cubit's about 18 inches. That one I did look up. Some of these other ones, I'm not exactly know exactly what it is, but they did, and they understood that this is how much each person is to have. So this is what you're going to gather. This is what God said you need. This is what you're going to take. Do it obediently. You're not squirreling it away for a rainy day. Then the children of Israel did so and gathered, some more, some less. So when they measured it by omers, he who gathered much had nothing left over, and he who gathered little had no lack. So some gathered more, some gathered less, but each according to their need. Each according to what they would need. And that's actually the next part of that verse. Every man had gathered according to each one's need. And Moses said, let no one leave any of it till morning. Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moses. So Moses is saying, you know what you're allowed to gather. You use it, and that's it. Leave none till morning. You're not stockpiling this. You wanted to be, have bread to the full and meat every night. You now have that. Now eat it up. But they don't want to heed them. But some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was angry with them. So God said, I'm going to test them. I'm going to give them what they asked for. I'm going to give them what they need. And you're going to know when they disobey me. Everyone's going to know, because they're going to have worms and it's going to stink. So they gathered it every morning, every man according to his need. And when the sun became hot, it melted. So you're not going to be lazy. God's going to provide. You're going to have to go out and harvest that stuff, though. You're going to have to do works. Not for it. He's already providing it. You're not earning it from him. You're not doing a work and then he hands you a paycheck of manna at the end. But you're going to work because of the blessing, not for the blessing. And so it was on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. Then he said to them, this is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake today and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until morning. So they laid it up until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Then Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it. But on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none. So they came up nervous, like, okay, we did the 2 days worth like you asked, but last time people kept it, there were issues. Moses saying, no, this is what God has commanded. On this 6th day, you're going to gather it all up, and you're going to hold on to it because you're not going to be able to gather it tomorrow, because you're not to do work, you're to rest. This is the day the Lord has given you to rest from all your work and refresh. Now it happened that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he gives you on the 6th day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. So there were still people greedy. Still people going, okay, we have what we need, but we want more. We have what we need. We have everything we asked for, but we want more anyway. So God said to Moses, how long do you people refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? I have told you what I expect of you. Now keep it. You made demands of me. You complained against my provision. Now I'm providing, but yet you still refuse to be obedient to your master. How long do you think that's going to go on, Moses? And the house of Israel called its name manna. And it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So this is what they called the bread. They called it manna. And it tasted as if it was wafers with honey. So it was sweet to the taste. It was enjoyable. It wasn't just sustenance to fill their bellies, but it was an enjoyable treat to eat. Then Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Fill an omer with it, and be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread with which I have fed you in the wilderness, and I brought you out of when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." So he's saying, this omer you're going to keep for all time, and you're going to see what it was. It's not going to rot. It's not going to stink. This one omer you're going to keep so that they know of what I did. And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a pot and put an omer of manna in it and lay it up before the Lord to be kept for your generations." As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. So you read this and you go, wait a minute. The testimony, they don't have the testimony yet. How's it being laid up before the testimony? And how? Well, once again, Hebrew writing, actually lots of ancient writing, sometimes in the beginning they give an overview. Well, at the end, they give another overview, an outro as it is. So this being written to the generation of Deuteronomy is being told that this is where it is. It is in the Ark of the Covenant, next to the testimony and next to Aaron's staff. And the children of Israel ate manna for 40 years. Well, we're not 40 years in yet. But the readers are being told this is what happened. The manna continued until they entered the land, the promised land. Then it stopped, because then they had to take hold of the promised land. Then they had to start tilling the soil, planting their own crops, reaping what they sow, and taking command of the land that the Lord had promised them. So, moving on to chapter 17. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended with Moses, said, "Give us water that we may drink." So Moses said to them, "Why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord? You wanted water before, you got water. The Lord provided. You wanted food. You wanted to complain against us. You wanted to complain against God. The Lord provided. Now here you are again. Why are you tempting the Lord again? He will provide. Why don't you trust him for his provisions?" And the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, "Why is it you brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. What shall I do with this impatient people? This people who at every turn go against the blessings they've seen and don't trust that there are more to follow. They believe that your power isn't abundant, that your blessings aren't abundant. What am I to do with these people because they're getting ready to come after us? Me and my brother are in danger because these people are so unruly." And the Lord said to Moses, "Go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that people may drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" You know, we're told this rock of running, living water, is Christ. Not just a picture of Christ, but is Christ. And that this rock continued to follow them. continued to give forth water, not just this one time, but for a time, that this would be their provision. And it's just a sad reality that every time we are faced with troubles, we forget the blessings that we've already received. And we seem to get it in our head that more blessings are not to follow, that blessings aren't coming, that our blessing was a one-off, that the Lord showed mercy on us one time, patted us on the back, and sent us on our way. But that's not how it is. He blesses us in abundance. In abundance, not with a lot, but an abundance, meaning in a continuation. He blesses us continuously, whether we like to see it or not. The Lord will continue to bless us. Some we recognize, some we don't. In some ways, often it comes in the form that something we don't even want, in a way we don't want, in a way we find difficult to appreciate. Because some blessings come through correction. Some blessings come through trial. Some blessings come through pain and suffering. But they will come. They will be for our benefit. They will be for our prosperity. Not our material prosperity, but our spiritual prosperity. So don't let us fall into the mistake that these people found themselves falling into, asking whether the Lord is among us or not. Because the answer is yes. The Lord is always among us, always indwelling us if we're Christians. And if we're not, the Lord is still around us. If you don't believe, that knocking's still there. Jesus is still asking for you to let him into your heart. Because he's not going to force his way in. Because that's not how love works. That's not how a perfect love would work. You can't force someone to love you. That's not love. That's coercion. That's abuse. God's not going to force you to love him. God asks that you love him. He gives you reasons to love him. God won't abandon you because you didn't love him. But you will be judged by whether you reject him or accept him. God is always among us. Believer, unbeliever, prosperity, times of trial, God is always with us. Question is, have we let him in? Or are we refusing and hardening ourselves to his glory? So, that's where we will end it for this morning. I hope this was fruitful for you. I hope to see you again next time. But until then, be blessed.